Alejandro Rivas was a man everyone envied and almost no one truly knew. In the city of Valencia, his name meant power. He owned hotels, construction companies, and a chain of luxury restaurants. Expensive cars stood in his garage like silent soldiers. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceilings of his mansion, and the marble floors reflected everything except one truth. Alejandro did not trust love. 5 years earlier, he had lost his wife Sofia during the birth of their twins, Mateo and Lucia. Since that day, something inside him hardened. He raised the children with care, but always with a quiet fear. People didn't love him, they loved his money. And then Valeria appeared. She was beautiful, elegant, and spoke softly. She worked as an event coordinator at one of his hotels. She treated the twins kindly and laughed at Alejandro's jokes. For the first time in years, he felt peace around someone. After a year, he proposed, but happiness made him restless. Because Alejandro had seen too much of the world. Business partners had betrayed him. Friends had disappeared when he refused loans. Even relatives suddenly appeared whenever inheritance was mentioned. So one night, sitting in his office, he asked his lawyer a strange question. What would happen if I lost everything tomorrow? The lawyer laughed. You? Impossible. Alejandro did not laugh. 2 weeks later, the news exploded across television and internet. Rivas Group declares bankruptcy. Stocks collapsed. Banks froze accounts. Creditors arrived. Reporters surrounded his mansion gates. Employees panicked. But it was all a performance. Only 3 people knew the truth. Alejandro, his lawyer, and his old housekeeper Marta. Alejandro moved with his children into a small, worn-down house at the edge of the city. No servants, no drivers, no luxury. Only basic furniture and peeling paint on the walls. Valeria came to visit. At first, she hugged him. I don't care about money, she whispered. But slowly, small changes appeared. She began asking questions. When will the court process finish? Are you sure you have no hidden accounts? Maybe your lawyer is lying. Then came the first moment that hurt him. Mateo, the little boy, ran to her holding a drawing. Look, Mama Valeria, I drew our new home. She smiled, but it was forced. This is temporary, right? Alejandro watched silently. Days turned into weeks. The phone stopped ringing. The people stopped visiting. Except one person, Marta, the old domestic worker who had served the Rivas family for 22 years, continued coming every morning. Even though Alejandro told her he could no longer pay her. She still cleaned. She still cooked for the twins. She still ironed their school uniforms. Why are you still here? Alejandro asked. Marta smiled gently. Because your children still need breakfast. He offered her money from his hidden reserve. She refused. Don Alejandro, I didn't stay for your salary. I stayed because this house once gave me dignity when I had nothing. Meanwhile, Valeria started visiting less and less. One evening, she arrived angry. My friend saw me entering this neighborhood. Do you understand what people think? I can't live like this forever. Alejandro felt something break inside him. And that night, he heard something that froze his heart. Valeria speaking on the phone outside. If he doesn't recover his fortune, I'm leaving. I'm not raising children in poverty. She didn't know Mateo was standing behind the door, listening. The little boy said nothing. But the next morning he asked his father a question. Papa, do people love us only when we are rich? Alejandro could not answer, and that was the moment he realized. The real test had just begun. Before Chapter 2, if this story is touching your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Because stories like this remind us what real love actually means. Winter came early that year. The small house was cold. Alejandro chopped firewood himself. Lucia wore gloves inside. Mateo never complained, but he started helping Marta carry groceries. One day, Mateo secretly gave Marta a coin from his piggy bank. For food, he said. Marta almost cried. Valeria visited only once that month. And this time, she brought a document. Alejandro, she said carefully, maybe we should postpone the wedding. He already knew, but he asked, why? She hesitated, then answered honestly, I didn't imagine my life like this. He nodded slowly. No anger, no argument, just silence. 3 days later, she stopped answering calls. She was gone. The twins noticed. Lucia cried. Mateo didn't, but he stopped drawing pictures. Only Marta stayed. She told bedtime stories, sewed Lucia's torn jacket, and taught Mateo how to plant tomatoes in the backyard. Alejandro watched everything carefully. He was no longer testing Valeria. He was learning who truly loved his children. One evening he asked Marta, if one day I recover everything, what would you ask from me? She looked almost offended. Nothing. I already have what matters. A place where I am not invisible. Alejandro closed his eyes. The next morning, black cars stopped in front of the small house. Neighbors gathered. Men in suits walked toward the door. Alejandro stepped outside, but this time wearing his expensive tailored suit again. Mateo and Lucia stared in confusion. Marta froze. Alejandro knelt in front of the twins. "I need to tell you the truth." He explained everything. The bankruptcy was false. The poverty was a test. The fortune was safe. Lucia hugged him tightly. Mateo asked only one thing. Was Marta part of the test? Alejandro shook his head. No, Marta was the answer. Then he turned to her. With tears in his eyes, he handed her a folder. Inside was a legal document, ownership papers, a fully paid house, in her name. Marta's hands trembled. "I cannot accept this." "You must," Alejandro said softly. "You stayed when you thought I had nothing. You fed my children when you believed I could never repay you. You showed them what real family looks like." Weeks later, Valeria returned. She had seen the news. Rivas Group returns, record profits. She came smiling. "I knew you would recover." But Mateo stepped forward and quietly said, "You didn't come when we were cold." No one needed to say more. Alejandro closed the door. Not with anger, with clarity. That night, the mansion lights turned on again. The twins laughed again. And Marta sat at the dinner table, not as a worker, but as family.